Hi, I'm Ruth Royal from Youth Pledge for Employers, and I'm really excited to be talking to Tom Bullard today, who's co-founder of Squad Assist. Tom, welcome. Lovely to meet you.
Hello, good morning.
So first of all, tell us a bit about Squad Assist.
Yeah, so Squad Assist is a football organizer. So
Right.
that's, yes, primarily aimed at people playing kind of five-a-side, seven-a-side, that kind of thing. So quite kind of casual. And
Wow.
basically, it's to try and help people kind of like organize and manage the group. So I've been playing seven-a-side for 8 years or so.
Right.
And I'd kind of noticed over those 8 years just how much time and effort goes into organizing what is essentially just a kind of kickabout with
Yeah.
friends, colleagues, that kind of thing. Because, most adults have quite a lot going on. So trying to find like who can play one week, what kind of time of day are we playing? How much is it going to cost? And all the different like methods that different groups use. So whether it's like text messages, emails, WhatsApp, Facebook, um, and yeah, trying to just like find a way that you could just make that super simple. So yeah, so I came up with the idea of creating an app for it.
Wow. So that's very cool. So that, because that to me, I love the fact that you kind of not necessarily saw a gap in the market, but saw a problem that needed fixing and thought, I'm going to create an app for that.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. It was very much driven by that kind of like a need for something. I love the idea of, if it's not there, build it.
Yeah, definitely. I love the proactivity of that. Just like I notice things wrong all the time and never have any skills to actually do anything about them, Tom. So
Mm.
that's brilliant. So what sort of background did you come from? Because not, sort of many people can see a problem and think,
Oh
right,
yeah.
okay, I can
Oh
write an app.
indeed. Indeed. So yeah, it was actually I came from it, I suppose, quite a different angle than I guess most people would anticipate. So I did a degree in computer game design. So yeah, initially from about the age of, yeah, probably about 16 until I don't know, like 25 or so, I was like, yes, I'm going to be a game designer. So I went and did, yeah, a degree in game design, then went and did a master's degree in game design, but also specializing in user interface design. So that's the people that kind of make menus and make the things that kind of people interact with on the screen, things you can click, that kind of thing.
That is so specialist, isn't it? That like you think of games
Yes.
design as being very specialist in itself, but the fact that there are sort of specialisms within the
Well,
specialisms as well is
this is,
amazing.
yeah, this is exactly how the games industry works, which is something that I wish I'd known when I was 16, to be honest.
Hmm.
Because I was thinking, game design's, as you say, quite specialist, but it's within that there are so many niches. And as soon as you kind of go on a game design course, then you realize, okay, there are loads of niches. And yeah, to get a kind of job in the games industry, I do feel like you kind of need to pick a niche, a specialization within that industry. Because you've got all things from people that write the kind of stories, the kind of
Yeah.
narrative, people that do 3D modeling. They call
Wow.
themselves kind of artists. You have people that kind of do the textures of the 3D world. So that's kind of like how
Oh my
things
gosh.
look.
Yeah.
Got people that specialize in lighting. So trying to make everything lit really well. People doing sound. And then
That's
you've got all the kind of
amazing.
programming specializations. So it's just like so many niches within the games industry. And by the end of my degree, I'd picked kind of user interface.
Yeah.
Um, and then from that, I'd worked on several projects during my master's degree because I was very fortunate that I was able to work in a games studio for that year.
Wow.
So I started working on some mobile apps and software rather than kind of games during that year. So even though I was working in a games
Yeah.
studio, we're still kind of working on software. So that's kind of what started me off on that journey, really, of more focusing on mobile apps and software rather than, your kind of traditional entertainment games.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So you had that experience, and then you thought, right, I'm gonna fix this issue. And I'm
Yeah,
gonna
so
make an app.
yeah, eventually. So me and Dino have been working together for about 10 years.
Wow, so a long
And
time.
yes, and sort of straight out of uni, because that's where we met. So we both went to University of Huddersfield, and yeah, so we kind of initially started working on our own computer game, and we're really excited by that. Did all the designs. So he very much focuses on the programming side of it,
Right,
so kind
okay.
of coding it. Whereas I'm more the kind of arty designer type person that makes things look pretty. He does all the real graft, is how I describe it.
I'm sure it's equally shared in different ways.
Yeah. So we started working on our own computer game, and we kind of ran into the classic problem of we kind of need some money, but you can't really make money from computer games until you've built it and start
Right,
selling it. So then we've kind of since then been trying to work on loads of different projects to try and get money
right.
so that we could fund our own computer game. But at this point, I don't know whether we actually ever will get back to our game, but we might do. Um, so we worked for an engineering company doing sort of software development for them. We started building kind of an app to try and teach people computer science, kind of get them into coding. We built something for a school, kind of like almost like a kind of well-being app for a school, kind of
Right.
like trying to check in with their students, how they're kind of feeling at school. And and then yeah, the first year of the pandemic, the first lockdown, we were kind of like, should we try and kind of create a new project?
Mm.
So that's when I kind of pitched Squad Assist to him, and he was like, "That sounds really good. That sounds really easy. We should make it." It turned out to not be as easy, but yeah, it's going well. It's going well.
Oh, brilliant. So so what happens then? So when you make an app, sorry to
Hmm.
sound, because I
No, it's
really
okay.
know nothing about that. So you decide to make an app. What did you do next?
Okay, so
How
I
does that
start
work?
out,
How does that work even?
yeah. So I start out by prototyping how it's going to look. And through that process, I try and work out what the app needs to be able to do. So I'll start by just kind of creating like 2D kind of like fake mock-ups of how a mobile app might look.
Right, okay.
And I use a piece of software called Adobe XD.
Right.
And through that, you can also then start putting together like interactions. You can say if you click this button, it goes to then this new menu. And you can basically kind of create, yeah, you can kind of create the how the app will fit together and how it will
Okay.
kind of like flow through the different screens. And you try and work out, yeah, the different screens and the different features that you'll need. And then I share that with Dino, and then he starts to actually create it, like actually coding
Okay.
it. Um, so we use a framework
Wow.
called Angular, if anyone's interested in that. So that uses TypeScript, which is a kind of a follow-on from JavaScript. Um,
Right.
so yeah, so he kind of puts it all together, and then I supply the kind of like the designs and the look and the feel and that kind of
Okay.
thing.
That is really interesting. I just never even thought about that when I click on an app,
Yes.
see. So that's really interesting to understand that process of how that's worked. And then, so how do you go about sort of launching your app?
So that's a really good question, because that's kind of what we're in the process of doing right now.
Yeah.
We're in that phase where it's basically created, and we're starting off by doing beta testing.
Okay.
So it's kind of open to anyone, but primarily going to be people kind of we know, people we're kind of familiar with. And then they basically get a free copy of the app that they can test and hopefully try and break, so that we can find issues within it to be able to kind of fix them.
Wow.
Um, And then from there, once we've kind of tried to find all the bugs, as they're known, then yeah, we'll fix them, and then we hopefully have a kind of finished product. And then it's all down to kind of like our marketing. So that's one of my other kind of hats within
Yeah.
the business.
So then you'll go out, and what sort of things do you do to sort of like market an app?
Yeah. So we're going to be starting off with social media. We're going to be thinking about probably networking, going to kind of events, because what we've found is probably our customers very often sort of professionals, sort of young adults, maybe kind of 20s, 30s. And it's surprising how many people we just kind of meet and say, "Oh, we've done this," and they're like, "Oh yeah, I play football. That'd be so useful." So yeah, it's very much just trying to kind of meet people. I've got some connections within kind of local football, so
Yeah.
explore them. Um, it's things like search engine optimization for the website. So that's, you know, kind of creating content on the page, trying to get people on the website. So that's through kind of like a blog. We're going to be doing sort of content around helping people to get into football, kind of explaining things like kind of basic training drills, that kind of
Brilliant.
thing. So yeah, so the marketing will be a huge kind of amount of work.
Yeah.
Um,
That sounds really brilliant. That's so exciting to have sort of caught you at that phase where you're going to go out and do that. I'm just sort of interested as well, is that you, to me, sort of from a skills perspective, you've got a really highly marketable skill set.
yes.
Why don't you just go and work for somebody?
Yeah.
Like seriously,
Yeah,
what are
no,
your
that's a good question.
drivers?
That's a good question. So I suppose going back to the end of uni,
Mm,
and I was looking at games industry jobs, and at that time, sort of big companies in this country were kind of expecting their staff to maybe work 8 in the morning till 2 in the morning,
God,
probably
just
7 days a week.
wow.
It's probably not actually legal, but it's a kind of grey area within the games industry. And it's all called crunch. It's this idea that you've got a set deadline and you
Mm,
basically work as many hours in the day to meet that deadline. And I looked at that and just felt I don't really want to be part of that. If I'm going to work that hard, then I'm not sure I want to be on 20 to 40 grand a year when the company I might be working for might be making billions.
yeah,
So that was kind of one. Now, I will say that not all games companies are like that. And actually, there
yeah,
is a culture shift these days because a lot of people realize that you can't have that. You can't work
yeah.
like that. No one can
I
work
think
like
the
that.
pandemic's kind of made people revisit some of that as well. But
Yeah.
that's really interesting that at that point you just thought, I don't want that for my life.
No, I just thought if I'm going to work that hard, I'd much rather work for myself. And I've got a lot of my other
Brilliant.
friends because we started university right at when the kind of banking crisis in
Hmm.
sort of 2008, 2009 started.
Yeah,
So, going to uni, on the high streets, I saw a lot of shops closing, a lot of homeless people, and it was just that kind of feeling that there might not be a job at the end of my degree for me.
mm,
So yeah, so both me and a lot of my friends have all started our own companies.
brilliant.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of, I guess, the kind of entrepreneurial spirit. Um, I do have to credit Young Enterprise as well,
Yeah,
because that's something I did at college that really kind of opened that door to me. If
yeah,
you know, just that experience of being able to run a business, kind of go to business events and networking,
yeah.
I kind of see that, and it just sort of like, yeah, it's just like this is achievable. This is possible.
I think that's just fantastic. That sense of like, actually, I don't want to live like that, and actually, people can work, and these things can still happen to them in terms of like, banking crashes, etc., and to sort of plough your own furrow, as they say, in
Absolutely.
terms of what you want to do. What sort of because I've spoken to quite a few entrepreneurs. What sort of qualities do you think make you kind of fit for entrepreneurship? Like, are there sort of personal, obviously we've talked about your skill set, but what about
Yeah.
sort of personal qualities?
Mm. I mean, you've got to be, sorry, you've got to be motivated, I guess, and driven,
Yeah,
um, and be able to kind of manage yourself and be quite strict at sometimes with yourself on, this has got to be done. I kind of think every day, what can I do today to help my business move forward? So yeah, it's kind of that, I guess, clear direction, drive, motivation.
yeah.
Um, that certainly helps. I think if I didn't have that, it would be difficult. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
I think, do you feel as well that perhaps being an entrepreneur, you almost have to be able to cope with a certain amount of ambiguity, like actually, like that you don't like your paycheck, for example,
True.
you don't necessarily know that you're going to get paid X amount every month, and you have to be able to cope with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. So I do work part-time
Yeah.
for adult learning. So
Yeah,
um,
so keeping something going to keep the
yeah,
income, that's certain. And I think that's really interesting, that sort of concept of like almost like a portfolio career, like building
yes,
one thing
yeah.
along. And I just, if you were to go back, and we've sort of asked everybody this, Tom, but if you were to go back and have a conversation with young Tom, who sounds very sorted out anyway in terms of knowing what you wanted to do, but if you were to go back and have a conversation with yourself and give yourself a piece of career advice, what do you think that would be, with the benefit
Oh,
of that 2020 hindsight?
yeah. I mean, it's difficult because I have actually thought about this myself, and I think I'd say sort of learning programming more. But then I
So
know the
you'd give
reasons why
yourself
I
a very
didn't.
specific bit
Yeah, this
of
is it. This is
advice.
it. So it's like it's certainly if I could code and program more confidently or better, I certainly would have more options available. Kind of going down the creative arty design route probably restrict me a little bit, but it's not like I regret it.
Yeah,
And I know the reasons why I didn't get into programming. It's just because I just couldn't. There was not enough drive there, as much as I wanted to, as much as I tried to kind of teach it, and I learned some at uni, got taught it. It just never, never grabbed me. So I could never
yeah.
kind of just concentrate on it. Um,
So really, though, you might go back and say do some more programming. You
and I probably
you
wouldn't. Yeah,
no,
I
no. So,
probably wouldn't listen to myself.
no. And if you don't enjoy it, I think there's a piece around that, isn't there? Like your intrinsic motivation to do stuff is really important.
Yeah, for me, that's a huge part of it. And I think, I suppose that as well, I've kind of got to feel like there's some positive impact from my work. Um, so yeah, there were kind of times where people in kind of financial industries, that was like an area. So I could have moved to London, but I've grown up in the countryside. I've grown up in South Norfolk. I'm not, you know, built to live in London.
Yeah,
Um, so it's just that kind of thing where it's just like, yes, I could have gone down those routes, but yeah, I kind of wanted to stay here, and I feel like for me it is really important the kind of work that I'm doing. I have to feel like there's some sort of positive
yeah.
benefit.
Well, I think that certainly sort of comes out, and it's been so interesting to talk to you today and your journey. From the outside looking in, you seem like somebody with a lot of integrity in terms of how you choose to live your life, and I think that's a fantastic message.
Yeah, well, it's actually something that one of my tutors at uni said, because we were kind of discussing probably around the culture of the games industry, and they just said, you're the next generation. If you don't like how my generation have run things, do something different. And that really, really kind of resonated with me, because I did see things like, yeah, the games industry and crunch and that kind of working people into the ground, and just thought it's not how I'd want to run a business. So yeah.
So you're doing something different. Well, that is brilliant.
Attempting
Thank
to,
you.
yes.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Tom. It's been lovely to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. It's been a pleasure.